Okay. Let's everyone stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. This is a special meeting work session to discuss a potential development moratorium here in the town of Montgomery. We do have some emergency business to attend to that we also put on the agenda. Before we start, I just wanted to kind of give the board a feel for how I would like work sessions to go in the future in terms of how we communicate, how we do business, and also public interaction. I also, before we start, just want to address our first meeting, the reorganization meeting. We did put a letter together. That letter was sent to the IDA. I read it on behalf of the board at the IDA meeting. But I do want to offer an apology to our chairman, Jeff Christ, who is here today. In my opinion, communication between boards is key, and I definitely fell short in my ability to communicate effectively what was going to be in that letter and what our temperament was. I think it was a little unprepared, and that was my doing. So I want to apologize, Jeff, to you. And moving forward, we're going to have great communication. Looking forward to our boards working together to make sure that if there are issues and we have feelings like we continue to have on specifically that pilot, that we can address them ahead of time and potentially entertain discussions moving forward, that one issue alone, to change it and to really be on the same page so that companies, when they come in, have an idea of what the rules of the game are. So I just wanted to address that. Also,
so you're going to address the actual conversations with us too, because I don't know if you guys got the other members of the board, but the numbers that were put forth in that community benefit agreement to Project Sailfish, Blue Water Partners, USCF, whatever you want to call that project, were never confirmed with me prior to that email being sent to Don Chase.
Sure. So to clarify, we sent our letter. We stated our feelings in that letter. And for me as supervisor, as the chief executive elected official, entering into negotiations is something that is under my purview, and I'll let my attorney correct me if I'm wrong. And what I did was call each of you individually to give you an update on the actions I plan to take. I took a bit of a consensus, which I believe was my ability to really try to get a feeling for how the board felt, as opposed to just going off myself and doing something. But I would ask counsel if I did anything inappropriate there.
No, there was, as we've discussed, there was nothing binding in any actions that you took. As we talked about, nothing would bind the town board unless there was any type of vote for some definite action, and that hasn't taken place here. The supervisor does have the ability to negotiate and have discussions with entities outside of the town, those who want to do business here, and again, those are on a non-binding basis, but there's nothing wrong with discussing parameters of a potential agreement.
Correct. And if anything came to fruition, and even if we had a meeting, which has not happened, I would obviously let you guys know, keep you posted, and anything that would be formally approved would come to the board, the public would get an idea of it, and then we'd make a decision based on the information we have.
But I spoke to Councilman Feller here outside who had said that there was additional things to be put in that community benefit agreement.
No, like I said, it's fluid.
Sent that without conversations with me or discussing with Ron. I did not agree to a $3.3 million community benefit agreement and losing out on all the potential taxes, as you can see in the memo that I sent to the board.
Nothing was agreed upon. It's all just a conversation. So as it's fluid, you'll get updates. And if there is something that's put on paper, and in terms of a community benefit agreement, it'll come to our next board meeting or the soonest board meeting that there is an agreement, if there is even one. And that's, I'll update you as soon as I can and in real time.
If you're going to say that we would be inclined to submit a letter on behalf of a letter to the town of Montgomery IDA board, we need to have a conversation here that says their application and all their deficiencies in their application, as I've stated here. And if you want to do that as an agenda item for the next meeting.
So absolutely. So anything like that would be part of the conversation. We together signed a letter, and if we wanted to put something else on paper in terms of how we feel, whether there's an agreement or not, we would do that together as a board. So, yes.
Not with you having individual conversations with each board member, more of you
No,
have discussions.
for me, that was a courtesy because things were happening in real time. And that was just a courtesy of me communicating with the board where things were. If there's an agreement, of course, it's gonna happen in the light of day, and we're gonna discuss it, and we're gonna address all the concerns that you've been addressing, which I appreciate you shedding light on. All right?
If you move forward, though, I would appreciate an agenda topic to discuss this.
Well,
But I understand we're in a time constraint right now to discuss the moratorium and other
Sure.
town issues.
Absolutely.
But these are all the issues, the current and the old application that have been flagged, as I've given each one of the board members.
Anything we decide to do, we'll decide to do together. It'll be at a public meeting, and that's when the action will be taken. I just wanted to give a courtesy to update each of the board members, and that's why I try to have more communication, right? I'm the supervisor. There's certain things that I have to do day in and day out, but hopefully you guys have seen that in the first 14 days. I'm gonna over-communicate with you. So that was just my attempt to continue to keep you guys posted. And also, if I do stuff, I don't want to do it by myself. I want to have an understanding that at least the majority of the board is in the right direction. So that was my attempt to do that. All right. All right, we are on the time constraint. We have a lot of people here. So I just want to address some house rules for work sessions. Thank you for joining us, Mike Aiello, our engineer. Appreciate it. For those of you that do know, I come from the school of Senator Bill Arkin. One of the things that the senator used to do, and it was my favorite thing he used to do, is if he was meeting with a constituent, he would bring them to his office, they'd have a discussion, and he would get out of his chair at his desk, and he would have the individual sit at his desk and be on his phone and solve the problem. And he always taught me that it was the best way to have government in action is citizen participation. So I believe that in work sessions, not just town board meetings, there should be a public component and ability to speak. So you won't just be talking from a podium. We won't just have it be us against you. My whole thing here is that we're one team, we're one community, and at the town level, you do have a unique opportunity to be part of that. So if you have a public comment, and we're gonna reserve 20 minutes today, specifically on the moratorium issue. I know that's not a lot of time, but this will be an initial discussion. You'll come sit at this table, say your piece, come join us, and we're going to keep a clock on that. I'm going to do my very best to move it along so that we can conduct the business that we need to conduct. So before we get to that portion, I just wanted to run through, I know we're a little bit out of order here, but I wanted to run through for our consultants' purposes so we can get them out of here, some of these emergency items. I'll start with the Tom Sip contract authorization. Our attorney has reviewed similar contracts in other communities. This is an agreement with Jewish Family Services, and I will let him speak to its content.
Okay, I don't know, does the board have familiarity with what Jewish Family Services does in their visiting program?
No.
Okay, they're all over Orange County and the Hudson Valley. What they do is they establish in a lot of municipalities, I should say, they establish a visiting program. And what they do is they get community involvement. They get volunteers from this town, they train them, they show them what to do, and based on the particular needs of the people that are signed up for visits, what they do is some people need a ride to the doctor, some people need their medicine picked up, some people just need a visit at their home. Now it's Jewish Family Services, but that's just the name of the organization. They service everyone. It doesn't matter what religion, it doesn't matter what race, all of those things. So what they do is, does everybody have a copy of the contract?
You guys should have it. Sorry it came late. They sent us an email a couple days ago without an attachment, so.
Basically, what they do is they come in, they establish a program within the town of Montgomery. They'll have a point person here. A lot of times it starts with the clerk's office, and they start getting their volunteer program going. Town of Montgomery agrees to maintain a Town of Montgomery Seniors Independence Project Advisory Board. They help us select people and solicit volunteers who are going to be on this board for the town, provide a coordinator. Okay, that's what we're gonna do. They're gonna tell us, after they go through the process, who they think would be a great coordinator for the town's program to work with Jewish Family Services from the outside. get volunteers, perform intakes of people who would like some of the services that this group offers. And what they're asking for is a contribution to the program of $4,000 from the town annually. There's a 1-year contract, $4,000 for the first year to get the program started. I can tell you, based on the size of this town and some of the other places I've done this agreement, the contributions in other towns have been a little bit higher than this. Some places throw in $5,000, some a bit more, some a bit less, depending upon the size of the town. I think, from what I've seen, I think $4,000 is an appropriate amount.
This program's already in place. We've
Okay.
been doing it for
You've
about
been doing
10
it?
years now.
Yeah, this was
So
more, instead of me just signing it, we just wanted to have authorization from the board.
Okay. How many
Kristen,
do
if
we
you have
have?
any questions, because I know you're,
Yeah. How many volunteers do we have right now on who we're doing, do we know?
Thompson? They have a couple dozen,
Okay.
yeah,
Are they looking to expand a little bit? or-
yes. How
Okay.
many, Mary? 44.
44. That's great. That's a good-sized program, and for them to only be seeking $4,000 from the town, I think is a very reasonable number.
The town of Montgomery was one of the model ones that.
Yeah. Okay.
We have this in our budget.
Yes.
Okay, great.
And I met with them at their first meeting at 2 p.m., I think last week. We had a good discussion.
Good. I wasn't aware the program was up and running, so if they're looking to expand it, that's even better.
Yep.
Because it is, I've seen the results in some other places. It's a solid program for seniors, so.
So we would need a motion for the board to authorize the supervisor to sign the agreement with Jewish Family Services.
For the calendar year 2020, for running from January 1, 2020 to December 31, 2020, at a cost of $4,000 to the town, which apparently it's in the budget.
Would someone like to make that motion?
This is just for 1 year, we're doing this.
It's the 1-year contract, yeah.
Motion made by Ron, seconded by Councilman Ross. Any discussion? What'd I say, Councilman? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstaining? Motion carried. Thank you for correcting me, Councilwoman. Appreciate it. Wastewater treatment plant, Mike, you're up. Sorry, go ahead. You're getting several mics now, go ahead.
Mike is mine.
If we keep it short, I will. Since the middle of October, flows have shot up at the sewer treatment plant, resulting from infiltration. Repairs were made 6-7 months ago, following some extensive camera work, video inspections. Significant leak was found, patched right away, flows dropped off, started up again in October. Strongly recommend the board allocate, authorize TAM Enterprises under their Orange County bid for similar work to investigate the line again. I don't know if another leak is sprung up in the same area where the first one was repaired, or it's further downstream, or we stopped investigating because the fix we made to address the problem back in the summer.
So to my knowledge, there is an issue that you've identified, but you don't quite know specifically what it is, and us allocating these funds will help you identify that and fix the problem?
Well, the flow has increased, but since the middle of October, the 30-day average flow has jumped up by about 50,000 gallons a day. Because of the making use of the advanced metering system the town implemented over the past few years, we've isolated about 20,000 gallons a day in a segment of the sewer main that was not inspected in this past summer because we found the leak, fixed it, and that resolved it. So there is, we know, we've definitely narrowed down an area was 20, possibly 25,000 gallons a day, which would be a significant fix. We want to start there. Just need the authorization so the work can be scheduled.
Do you have any idea of the area? You can't.
No. I mean, who knows? There's about 3,000, maybe 4,000 feet of gravity line, which isn't significant. And we inspected probably half of that in the summer. So there's another half that wasn't inspected, but again, saw a major leak, fixed it, and that seemed to resolve the whole problem. There's no point in going on. So we'll start by continuing the inspection from where it stopped, and if what's seen, it doesn't look like there's a significant amount of leaks, and we'll go back and re-camera the line that was already done.
Do you have any estimate of the cost?
Tam Enterprise says $7,500 a day.
And
How many days?
we wanted to allocate 2
Hopefully
days.
it's one. I would think two would at the most would handle this area of the collection system, and that's what was approved last year. But they're able to do it in probably actually about 3/4 of the day.
So we looked at sewer 1 and sewer 2 with Bernard, and we're comfortable taking 10,000 out of each of those funds, sewer 1 and sewer 2. And it should be enough to give them a cap of 20,000 just in case there's some issues. It takes another day and a half. They have some flexibility. If they do find something, we don't want to wait till next Thursday's board meeting to fix an infiltration issue.
How are we at for numbers? Is that something that we need to concern about, that we're over our numbers for that plant? Like this INI issue?
Well, the past month, the
Right.
inflow and actually infiltration has increased above permitted
We're
capacity.
above capacity,
Yes.
or are we at capacity?
Above it.
We are.
We need to fix it. We need to allocate right now and identify the problem and fix it.
Right.
I'll make that motion.
Motion made by Sherry Millick to appropriate $20,000, 10,000 from sewer fund A, 10,000 from sewer fund B. 1 and 2.
1 and 2.
Not A and B, 1 and 2. Sewer 1 and sewer 2, 10,000 each.
Again, this is just for investigation to hopefully identify the source,
Right.
and then you really can't estimate what the
Fixes.
fix is going to be until we see the results of the
All right.
inspection.
And what kind of, what kind of investigation do they do? Do they do a camera down the pipe, or
They
do smoke tests?
bypass the flow, plug up the flow, bypass it around the segment of the pipe. They're going to run a camera, and they'll run a jet first to clean out the line, and then so the line is as clean as possible, and they'll run a camera and record the results.
All right, we have a motion by Councilwoman Millick. Is there, an addition to the motion?
Yeah, just the motion is to not only allocate the funds, but authorize Pam to do the work.
Correct, yes.
In
Councilwoman,
one motion.
Councilwoman Millick, make the motion. Member Millick,
Second.
seconded by Councilwoman Brown. Any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Any abstaining? Motion carried. Okay, Sean, you're up. We have emergency generator purchase. Sean has been in touch with each of you. Thank you for your due diligence. Thank you for helping to do my job by educating the rest of the council members as well. And now this is a very short presentation. You all should have the information. Any questions you have, I'll let you speak to it after Sean goes.
Well, the generator died. I had 2 different generator companies out there to check it out. After the first guy told me that the parts are obsolete, you can no longer get them. The other company came out, said the same exact thing. They both gave prices. They're both on state bid. The one company only does the purchase of it. They don't do installation, so then we'd have to have an electrician and a plumber, and we'd have to set it. The other quote came in, I think, $1,300 higher for them to do the install and everything. They set it. We will then bring the old generator for a surplus at probably the next meeting. Someone can buy it for parts or whatever, but the other company will do it start to finish, the Gen-Tech.
And it was just under $2,000 difference, I believe?
It was like $1,300 difference for them to do all the work.
And potentially if we bring in the electrician or do stuff in-house, it's gonna cost us
Yeah,
potentially more.
and he actually told me on the phone, the guy from Gen-Tech, that they would push things off to get it done hopefully Thursday, because they understand the urgency. If it goes out, we have no fuel pumps, we have no heat, we have nothing at the highway garage. So essentially, all your emergency services, everybody's out of fuel.
Which is why you're on the agenda tonight.
Yes.
Thank you. Any questions before our attorney chimes in on any of the procurement questions that I had?
So you said they can do this on Thursday?
That's what they're saying. So
Wow.
if this gets approved right now, I'm going to print the email so I can
So we're good on
sign it and
procurement.
send it over.
Okay.
The quote here, Sean advises that Gen-Tech and this particular piece of equipment and the labor is on the state bid list. So under our procurement policy, state bid list is an acceptable manner in which to proceed. So the total cost here with installation looks like $14,353.
Okay. So we would need a motion.
That's in your budget.
It's actually comes
Sorry.
out of the building.
Yeah.
I spoke with, what's his name from?
And that one.
Justin. I spoke with Justin today too and confirmed it. It comes out of the A1620, it's the building fund. I think there's 300,000 in there or something.
Just over 300.
Yeah.
Hold on one second. Ron, you had a question?
Yeah, Sean, is there any guarantee on this generator?
There is a 5-year limited warranty, and for $120 a year, I signed up for it. It actually sends me email alerts weekly that it runs. If there's an issue, it automatically emails Gentech, and they send a technician out to look at it.
So it's monitored.
Yep, so it's monitored weekly that it runs. That's how we monitor one now. We have an hour gauge hooked to it, and we noticed that the hour gauge didn't change, so we went out and tried to start it manually, and it wouldn't start. And
Is this the same size generator that you have
Same
now? I think
size,
I
yeah.
spoke to you about that.
Any other questions?
So again, we'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Okay,
Yeah, that
motion.
that
Would you
motion
clear up the
will-
motion, Will?
That would be the motion to authorize Gentech Limited of New Windsor, New York, to proceed with their proposal dated January 8th, 2020, to deliver and install a new generator. And the total cost of that will be, the generator's going to the garage, to the highway garage. And the total cost will be $14,353, which is a budgeted expense for the year 2020.
We had a motion,
Motion was made by Councilwoman Mallett.
seconded by Councilwoman Brown. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstaining? Thank you. Motion carried. Thank you, Sean. Go ahead, order. You can do it. Okay, we're running on time. Good. So, we are now going to go, and I'm going to try to keep this to 20 minutes. I know there's a lot of interest. I want to preface this by saying, try to make your points quick, because there's a lot of people that might want to speak, and we are on a dead stop at 5:20 because there is a 5:30 IDA meeting, or else I wouldn't put a limit on it. Also, you can submit any issues, any questions, any concerns. Those of you who have emailed me, you know I'm responding to you. I'm taking it, and I'm also forwarding stuff to the town board members. So you will be heard. We want to hear from you. So without further ado, I guess we'll do it by hand right now, and we'll start with Don, because you're closest. Come take a seat.
Okay, I guess this is what they call having a seat at the table, huh? Okay.
Welcome to the table.
All right, so everybody knows I'm Don Berger from Montgomery, and I represent RPM Residents Protecting Montgomery. You'll notice on the side wall, we have a map up there of the town of Montgomery for all the projects, or the larger projects. There's, I believe, 39 on there, and that's why we're here discussing a moratorium. You know, during the, when everybody was elected during the election cycle, there were a lot of promises, a lot of campaign promises made. And now is the time to make sure those promises are carried out. A moratorium. What's important with a moratorium is for us to take a breath and settle things down and understand what exactly we want for this future of this township. The most common type of moratorium is a land use approval. Land use moratoria is designed to preserve the status quo while planning and zoning changes are made. By enacting a land use moratorium, the local government temporarily suspends the landowner's right to build and to obtain development approvals while the community considers adopting changes to the comprehensive plan, a plan that we have not had since 1988.
Don, what page are you reading from?
Page 3.
Just so you know, Don, I did forward that material and other materials, so the board actually has had this information.
Okay. All right. So I won't read the whole thing, but I'll, if you go to page 8, folks, and you read that, I'm not going to read it, but that's an important point here under valid public purpose for a moratorium. In general, because I know you do have a lot of people to speak, what my concerns are is the time in which we're going to take to enact a moratorium. I think this thing is crucial, and it needs to be expedited in the most expedient manner. What my concerns are, and I'll list them for you: Albany, Goshen, Orange County Partnership, Orange County Economic Development, our realtors, our unions, and the non-residents that keep coming here and speaking for these projects that are before our planning board and IDA. The thing that I want everybody here to understand, when these folks come here, there's one common denominator that they all have. Do you all know what that is? They're not residents. None of them. But you know what? Every person that comes before your board, and I've been coming here since last November of 2018, and I have not heard a single resident in favor of anything here. And more importantly, they're in favor of a moratorium. This board works for the residents of the town of Montgomery. You don't work for the Orange County Partnership, you don't work for the Orange County Economic Development, and you certainly don't work for some of the realtors. It is imperative that we get a moratorium. You have to expedite this thing. Don't wait another month to have your next meeting. Get it on the table. We need to get this done now.
Thanks, Tom.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And just to preface this, I did give that document to the board. We have 7 or 8 different moratorium laws that were passed locally. Our residential town of Montgomery moratorium law that the board has, so we have tried to get a head start on educating ourselves. All right here.
Thank you.
Please just state your name for the record, too.
Good evening, my name is Reese Herman. I am a resident of the village of Montgomery. I'm a part of the Building Trades Committee, and I am for industrializing this whole entire county. So, listen to me. I see a lot of people here that aren't going to see the future of this county. You guys are concerned about the future of the county? With all due respect, how many more years do you have left?
My grandchildren.
But I'm serious.
That is out of line. That's out of line.
Mr. Herman.
I'm a young man.
Mr. Herman,
We
please
don't have grandchildren.
address the board and keep it to comments about the potential enactment of a moratorium, please, without bringing anyone's personality, anyone's age, anyone's anything, except the fact that the board is considering enacting a local law. Please keep it to that and address the board.
Not only
Thank you.
that, keep it to comments on, in the town of the moratorium was specific to the town of Montgomery.
Sure.
That's what the agenda is.
Go ahead, Reese.
Listen, I'm here to basically say that I'm here to industrialize this town. I've been here. I have property here. I pay taxes here. I'm a young man trying to make a living, and all the residents that are so against industrializing and building and they want to keep their town so, original and traditional and conservative, it's hurting the youth, which is our future. That's what it's doing. They want to keep it traditional, and I'm totally against it, but I'm not afraid to speak about it.
All right, thank you, Reese.
All right.
Appreciate your feedback. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Yes, sir. And again, just for the record, let's try to keep it to the moratorium. Let's try to keep it to the town of Montgomery. Definitely no more personal stuff. Let's try to stay on course here.
My name is Spiros Menevelos. I am a town of Montgomery resident. I am for the building and development of the area because I work in a town that forwent things like that and they can't afford a fire department and a police department. I believe in keeping the tax base strong, and I believe in a responsible way of doing it, which I believe you're doing already. So I really am for these projects. They're good for the community. They're in industrial areas, and it's going to help you. Look at your town too. You got trucks. People are afraid of trucks. I think the school buses are more of a nuisance in the morning than anything. So there will be a fair balance. I believe and I trust in you, and you will do your job, and you will do what's best for the community and the people in this area.
Thank you. Appreciate it, Spirit. Our clerk might ask you to spell that at some point.
Manouvelos. Daily Road.
I was so close.
You got that, Tara?
No, do it one more
Yes.
time.
M-E-N-O-U.
Got it.
Thank you for keeping it succinct there, everybody. I appreciate it.
I have to get my notes up real quick,
No problem.
sorry.
Technology.
I'm speaking with a great sense of urgency for a moratorium now, after many months of residents' pleas, signs, petitions, meetings, and public requests asking our government to look at the bigger picture. Just because we have a great location does not mean we are destined to be a trucking warehouse concrete mecca. We already have abundance of warehouses and an industrial corridor, plus there are numerous additional warehouse proposals on the table. I learned so much attending the board meetings, the planning board, the IDA, and the ethics meetings for a year and a half now. Ever since hearing about Medline spending $17+ million for land looking for land before approvals to build the biggest warehouse in the county, not on the Neelytown warehouse corridor, but closer to the village of Montgomery. I just recently heard that a neighboring town there are developers that are looking to move cemeteries and finding ways to build on wetlands because our location is that valuable. Such a crazy frenzy. We need a moratorium now. Money can buy so much. It's been very upsetting to watch how local, county, and state lobbyists have come here to the town of Montgomery board meetings to aggressively promote warehouses while neglecting our pressing issues like our quality of life, our current congested traffic, our need for upgrades to our water and our sewer, and protecting the Walkill River, which runs through our communities. With our ancient, comprehensive plan, we are so vulnerable to those who want to quickly barrel ahead and build more and more warehouses. We need a moratorium now. For the first time, I have a glimmer of hope that the board is genuinely listening to the concerns of those of us who call this town home. Just look, we are here talking about a moratorium at a special meeting, which is great. But the truth is, we have been talking about it for so long. Lots of talk, no concrete action. Supervisor, I can tell you've been listening to the community. You said before the election that you would consider a moratorium during the candidates' debate in Maybrook. You mentioned clearly hearing from residents when you were knocking on doors campaigning. Again, on the interview that you gave at the Montgomery Book Exchange before you took office, you talked about it. And again, thank you in your welcoming January meeting to reorganize, that you made this meeting possible. Thank you for listening. You sound rational. Yet, I know that these profit companies, the developers, the attorneys, the realtors, the trade unions who are in show here with us, and the lobbyists also have your ear. Other progressive communities with more recent comprehensive plans are moving ahead with moratoriums to fully evaluate smart growth, environmental protections, and ways to do conscientious future planning. If this board truly values this town and its tax-paying residents, you would agree that we can't wait a few more weeks or months that could result in irreversible negative consequence for this town. In the past, it was important enough for this town to enact a moratorium on solar projects. Well, what we have before us now is exponentially beyond that. We are under siege, and we need a moratorium now. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, okay, everybody back up. In order to have a meaningful discussion on a moratorium, and I know everyone has questions, again, this is a preliminary discussion. We have about 10 more minutes. Try to keep your comments to a minute and a half, 2 minutes, so we can get a few more comments here. I'm going to get to you, Maureen. Don't worry, I know you over there. Go ahead.
I'm a little nervous, but...
Don't be nervous. We don't fight. It's all good.
Yeah.
What's your last name,
Well, I
sir?
have a friend of mine who lived in Rutherford, New Jersey, and he lives in Monroe. But anyway, he said what they did in that particular area, they looked at the whole town. They says, commercial here, residential here. And when it filled up over here, that's it.
Yeah.
So you keep everything separate. We don't need warehouses all around us, with trucks all around us and air pollution. That's it.
Thank you for your comment. And just so you know, we did give the Monroe Law to the board, so they have that on the books for us to look at. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Cherie?
Good afternoon, Board. Thank you for this opportunity to discuss on the moratorium. Dear Board and Supervisor, this is a moment in time where the town of Montgomery is on the precipice of forever being changed. A New York State government department stated that by the addition of Medline, the historic value of the town will be diminished. Our value will be diminished. The land alterations are defined as irrevocable. Our character forever changed. Our watershed of the Wallkill and the Tin Brook benefits to this town are of deep concern as their value will possibly be diminished, environmentally challenged by added stressors. The whole town needs to address the problematic utilities, sewer, water, to define types of system, costs, agree on systems that will sustain us, and include meeting future environmental costs. Obviously, we have a problem with our system and we keep burdening it further by what was said today. The southeast section of Montgomery will be so altered we will find it defined as Montgomery's warehouse district. We have approved more zone changes in the last 3 years than in the last 10 or more, excluding the 2010 update, highlighting failure in our currently used archaic code. The increased level of vehicular traffic anticipated needs to be understood in a cumulative way to best address its effects. It is a matter asked for by numerous residents. It is a matter of safety and health, intelligent planning, financial burden outlook, and not residents' hyperbole. It should no longer be bantered about in discussion, but a demand made that it is, in fact, conducted. We need to apply current and proposed growth data to our comprehensive plan. It is the responsibility of this town government to guide responsible growth. There is a saturation of one type industry. It is financially problematic. Our zones permit a diverse set of potentials, not just one type. Diversity drives a healthy, more sound financial future. There must be an immediate stoppage of all projects to the strictest point the law allows, all lands with few exceptions, for our comprehensive plan and zone law update to be completed. It cannot become a horse already out of the gate or a land grab racing the clock to beat the plan to completion. I believe this is already in progress, but there is a vision for this town. It is what is being deemed as what's best for us. Our location drives such expectations, but the vision of what we can achieve as a town needs to be defined by a comprehensive plan and updated zoning code law that properly addresses the current and the future. It must be a product of the town. The ideas of what is best as times move into the 21st century. New possibilities exist. New generations seek different futures. The future drivers of finance. To be successful, a town needs to set itself in a position to respond to and use that growth for potential to its benefit. I will cease there, but there is within this letter I'd like you to know, so others may have opportunity. There was a brainstorming session, and people came up with concepts for this industrial land which is being consumed by one use. And I feel that it was enlightening and very valid. And I hope that when I sent this letter, you would take the time to review that. And I appreciate the board's consideration and request a moratorium before there's nothing left to save. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment, Sherry. Okay, Maureen, go ahead.
Can't we do residents first?
Thank you for this meeting. My name is Maureen Hallahan. I'm the president of the Orange County Partnership, and the work that we've done for over 35 years positively impact all residents in Orange County and also many years in the town of Montgomery. I'm here because the partnership has been in business for, like I said, 35 years. And what we've witnessed during those years is that during the very worst economy, that's when towns open the doors wide open and they offer incentives and they market strongly to companies to try to get them and entice them to come in, bring in jobs, bring in tax ratables, and support the schools. During the very best of the economy, when companies are coming in, there's a confidence in the market and they want to come, that's when towns oftentimes make the mistake of having a moratorium. We fully support a master plan. There needs to be a master plan that's predictable, that's a roadmap for developers and companies to know where they can locate, where the zoning is appropriate for their locations, and where jobs can be created, where your schools can be supported, and the revenues will impact your communities. But to halt all development not only sets a precedent where other companies will not come, possibly during this very strong economy where we could gain so much, we could lose potential jobs, we could lose a tremendous amount of ratables for our school districts and for the community, for all of your Department of Public Works and everything else. All those ratables by these companies pay for all the things that you need. So during the best of times, it's when we should be reviewing projects, hoping that jobs come in, and then at the same time, create a master plan so future development knows where to go, where you want it to go, and the community has a right to discuss, those things. Thank you for the time.
Thank you, Maureen. All right, we're gonna have just one more after Karina, and then we'll have to move on to our discussion so we can have time for it.
Thank you. I'm Karina Simpson. I live in the village of Montgomery, and it's been my pleasure to get to know the town of Montgomery through a great deal of engagement with this public process over the last year and a half. Since the economy started recovering, the town of Montgomery has been proceeding in haste. People have been speaking already about the number of zoning changes in just the last few years. There's dozens of projects in front of the planning board, some of which are asking for extensions for 10 years, 5 years. They're just keeping their hands in, waiting for the right time to go ahead. They've got the land reserved for their uses. They think they've got their approvals in hand and they're ready to go forward. Many projects are requesting zoning changes from our current zoning, including projects with Orange County Partnership and the Orange County Economic Development Corporation are bringing in here actively. Our zoning doesn't serve those projects either at this point. It doesn't serve the residents. We have so many projects where there's residents immediately adjacent to industrial areas. We don't have agricultural land that is zoned agricultural. Everything is zoned industrial. If there's a farm on it, great. There's no guarantee that this is going to be a right to farm community, which so many of us are proud of. Our infrastructure can't support existing businesses. The improvements that were made historically by the county and the state to surrounding roads are substandard by the applicant's own admission in projects that are currently in front of the planning board. We're not asking for a moratorium because we want to stop development. We're asking for a moratorium because we want smart development. We want development that's going to support the residents who already live here, the businesses who have already invested in our town and who are already paying tax ratables to us already, supporting our kids in the schools, supporting our roads, supporting all of these services that we appreciate. We want a community where we can enjoy our lives, where our children can thrive, and where people can find jobs that will support their families. We want to make sure that there's work here after the construction is done. I'm from a family where if it wasn't for the New Deal, Uncle Sam, and unions, we'd still be in the hills of Tennessee using outhouses, right? I believe in those institutions, and I believe in the importance of their institutions, and we want a community that supports those institutions as well. We're asking for you to hastily and carefully put a moratorium in place now, because we've been talking about this for over a year. We're losing opportunities to protect ourselves. We're losing opportunities to protect our kids. Our infrastructure is crumbling. We don't have the time to take a look at it and make sure we're protecting the existing businesses. And we're exposed. I said that before. People are afraid about the applicants getting angry about a pause, a carefully, thoughtfully put in place moratorium. We've already got action against the town from people who live here, who are paying taxes here. That's embarrassing to me as a resident. I'm asking you as a board to work quickly and to put a moratorium in place so we can do this comprehensive plan right, and we can do it now. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, this will be our last comment. I just want to make sure that that you guys know this is a preliminary discussion. There will be plenty more opportunity for public comment. We will have this on for future meetings with public comment. So please, by all means, after this meeting, after you hear our conversation and where we might go, submit emails, call me. We're available, all of us. So this is not the end of public comment, but in order to have a productive conversation, we have to have this as our last comment. Nick?
Hi, Nick Fitzpatrick. Upstate New York, if you look at it as a whole, is really struggling. We're losing businesses and residents
Moratorium.
across the board. So it's hard to imagine what Montgomery would be like if we weren't such a great spot for business. And we are a shining spot for business and transportation because of 84 that came through here years and years ago. The farm, the first farm that I owned gave land for 84. Nellie Major and and her husband gave that land, as well as many other people on that area, so that Neelytown Road and all those businesses could come here and create a transportation hub. So it's hard to imagine what the town would be like without that income from taxes, without those opportunities, and without the thoroughfares that they are creating. There's a lot of towns in New York that are in bad shape, that they don't have an economy, that they don't have tax revenue, and that their people just don't have opportunity. That's why people are leaving New York, going to South Carolina, Florida, Colorado, other states where the population increases by 2-3% a year. So if we go ahead and put a moratorium in place right now, we're really going to tarnish our reputation as a place where business can trust to make investment, and that's our reputation is everything. So let's not just go ahead and ruin a good opportunity because we feel that we don't want change right now, because there's a lot of other towns in New York that would do anything to have the opportunities that we have. So I'm against the moratorium because it will hurt the town's reputation as a place for business.
All right, thanks, Nick.
Thank you.
All right, I think we got a nice perspective from those that came here on both sides of that argument. I'll let our attorney, who prepared a memo, get started, but as you all know, you've been given a ton of emails, a ton of links, a ton of documents to look at, other moratorium laws on the books, our own moratorium laws that we put on the books. So I'll let Will go ahead, and then we'll chime in and see where we're at.
Everybody got a copy of my memo, right? And also the document that, what's that? All right. I think the document that Mr. Berger was alluding to too, the treaties from the state. There are, as was noted, a couple of different types of moratoria that's covered in the memo. You have the land use moratoria, you have a police powers moratorium. Something like, you all know what a land use moratorium is. It's to put a hold on approvals of projects while a comprehensive master plan is being reviewed and possibly updated. A police powers moratorium is a little bit more extreme for immediate emergencies, such as no more connections because there's a water issue. One would go under the police powers instead of a land use moratorium. That's all covered. You've all had a chance to read that. As far as what the basics are for a moratorium, they're summarized on page 3 of what I provided to the board. Has to have a reasonable time frame. Generally, anything over a year would be subject to certain challenges that would be sometimes hard to justify. Now, considering that the town board may feel that there's a great deal of work to do, that's something that we'll need to discuss if the board wants to go ahead and craft a draft law to discuss. Well, that'll be one of the key factors.
Are you saying length of the moratorium? Yes. 1 year?
Well, yeah.
Not to exceed 1 year, you're recommending?
Well, I'm not recommending anything yet until we get to the nuts and bolts of it. If the board wants to go ahead.
I think he's just discussing all this.
The reasonableness of the time frame will have to be one of the factors. Obviously, public purpose, the burden of a moratorium has to be shared by the public at large, not just necessarily one specific interest group. That's something else we're going to have to make sure if the board again wants to go forward with something when we craft it, we want to make sure that it's not disadvantageous to just one faction of the community or anyone who wants to do something here. We're going to do it if the board wants to go ahead. It can't be by resolution, it has to be by local law. Moratoria do not require seeker review. Okay. They do, however, require review under General Municipal Law 239M. So any moratorium would have to go to the Orange County Department of Planning. They have to sign off on it and give feedback to the town board prior to adoption. So typically what would happen is if the town board once some language is put together and a draft law is put together, what will happen is at that time a public hearing will be set. At the same time, that resolution setting the public hearing will also direct the clerk to send the law to county planning for their review and comment. As we know from prior local laws that have been sent to the county, if they issue non-binding recommendations, they can be considered by the board, and the board can move forward with a simple majority. If there are any binding comments that the county has, any moratorium would, or any local law that's required for referral would then have to be passed by a supermajority of the board. And of course, any moratorium will have to have an expiration date. So those are some of the basics of what's required in a moratorium. What we also generally see in moratorium laws and some of the examples that you've been provided with, there is a mechanism for a variance or a waiver from the moratorium that can be built in, and there's two ways of doing that. You can either have those requests for variance sent to the ZBA, or the town board can handle those themselves. Anyone who wants relief from the moratorium can, if a mechanism can be built in, for it to come to the town board. If that's something, if we go forward, if that's something the town board elects to do, we'll need language in the law itself superseding certain laws that say all variance requests must go to the ZBA. We'll build language in like that to supersede, some town law, New York State town law, and anything in the town code. Those are the main things for public discussion. There'll be other things that may require some conference, with council outside of the public domain, but that's basically the flavor of what the board's going to need to consider: the scope of the moratorium, who it's going to affect, what types of entities and individuals, and whether it's going to be for what projects in the pipeline. It has to be from a certain point. It can't be project specific. Okay? Can't say we don't like project X, so the moratorium's pointed at project X. That's not how it works. That's not sustainable. So those are the basics for the board to start their discussion.
All right, thank you for the preparation, and I know all of us have been hearing about this for quite a while, and while this is the first meeting that it's coming up in discussion, I don't think we'd be hasty, because I know that all of us, and I know myself included, have really been looking into this, talking to a large sector of the community. Once the public hearing hit the newspaper, I know a lot of us got phone calls from both sides, so I do feel like we can use the phrase Karina used, hastily and carefully, or as John Wooden said, be quick but don't hurry. Sorry, it's a basketball. You got that one.
No.
You didn't get that one.
Nope.
We talked about this. So I have my thoughts, but in the spirit of not dictating, I would really love to facilitate this conversation and hear from the board on how you feel. So whoever would like to take a stab first. Go ahead, Ron.
Right.
Would you ladies like to go first?
Gentlemen first.
I'll take a stab at it. I mean, I'm the old and the young. I'm old. I'm 74. I got 8 grandkids that live in this community. All my kids live here. All my kids grew up here. All my kids went to Valley Central with a couple of Burke kids. But are there certain? I was just listening to Will, and one thing struck me. I have certain things that I don't want to see continue to be built here over the next year. Because I think we have to step back and put a halt to something. If somebody told me, would you be in favor of not having any warehouses or distribution centers over 100,000 square feet, which is 10% of the 2 projects we got on the board, stopping that, would I be in favor of that? Yes. If somebody told me that they wanted to build a medical complex, then I wouldn't have to drive to Crystal Run or a movie theater someplace around, or a dome like they have in Milton, so I don't have to drive 50 miles to go to a soccer tournament. I'm not in favor of that. So I have mixed emotions on it. I think we have to do things the right way. I think if we're going to have a comprehensive plan, we have to get it done in a year. If we stop the clock right now, in a best case scenario, we come up with a comprehensive council and come up with consultants that everybody agrees upon. It's going to be in the best interest of the town. Stop the clock, look where we're at, and have a moratorium to stop warehousing and distribution centers. I would be 100% in favor of that. If somebody told me that friends of mine may be out of work, carpenters, electricians, plumbers, surveyors, engineers, because we're going to stop all building, I can't digest that. I have a lot of friends out there that their community needs this work. We need progress. We need controlled progress, and we need to do it in the right way. And there's a lot of discussion, and I know we're in a short time frame, and I don't have a whole lot more to say, but I do think that there are 2 sides to every coin, without a doubt. And that's my personal view, how I would feel doing it right now if the clock stopped today. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I guess we're going down the table. So my feeling is yes, we need a moratorium. We need it soon, but we need it well thought out. Based on all the research, which you guys can see on my papers, I do very well at scattering out papers behind me. I have done a fair good amount of research on this. I did read through all of the documents sent with the example moratorium laws. There's a lot of things that need to be thought out first. So, this conversation is more of, do we want it? Right, that's where we're going. Do we want it? Yes, I think we need it, but I think we need it well thought out and well written. That's why we had well for the written part. My concern, not the thinking, I won't put that on them. But my concern is, I mean, I have this. You guys can see it. I didn't know if Bren made copies of it, but it's 3 pages of projects that are in front of the planning board. You know, I mean, they range all from 2009. 2019, 2012. I mean, there are a variety of projects. I don't actually know the oldest one on here. I see 2010. Oh, yeah, 2009. But the result is, I think building is just out of control. And it's not a planned building that, like it was developed in 1988 with our original plan. We do have outside influences that are pushing warehouses as as an example of one thing. And we need to step back and say, we live here. We're home rule. We live here. We have to live with it. We have to deal with the consequences. So I am in favor of a moratorium, but a well thought out and executed one.
Councilwoman Ross?
I want to thank everyone for coming today. I think we heard both sides of the coin. I mean, some for, some against. I do have to side with Mr. Feller. I've lived here all my life. I've seen this town grow a lot. I think we have to grow it smartly, but I don't think we can shut it down totally. There's a lot of people who live and work here, and like you said, a lot of friends, relatives. What are we going to do with the surveyors, the carpenters, the electricians? If we just shut down everything, how do we move the town forward that way? I do think we have to do it smartly. If we have to look at these large warehouses, I am not opposed to that. Definitely in agreement with working with everybody, and because I think there is 2 sides to everything. And you know, you sit here and sometimes you think you see it one way, and then I hear someone else talk, and it's like it can sway you. So I do think we need a lot of communication, a lot of input, but I think we have to do it smartly.
Okay, Councilwoman Melk. Did I say name?
Excuse me, I have a sore throat. But not to reiterate everything that's been said, I pretty much have the same feeling. I think unfortunately, like Maureen has said, things are good now. Are people that live in this town that are, you know, in their own businesses, and they are plumbers, electricians, builders. I mean, this is an opportunity where they can actually come out of the years that they were so slow, and we've lost a lot of, you know, mortgages in the housing, and people couldn't pay it. You know, there was a lot of foreclosures. I mean, I myself feel that it's great that we have all those kind of entities in our town, and that they all are small business, you know, businesses, and they need to thrive too. So I am against shutting everything there.
Okay, is there a section, a segment of a moratorium on specific development you'd consider?
With large warehouses, possible.
Okay.
But like everybody else has said, it's gotta be well thought out, and I mean, I am against shutting everything down. I think it would be horrible to do to the residents of our town that are small, you know, business people.
Okay.
Thank you, everybody, for.
Go ahead, Councilwoman.
I apologize. According to the list that I have as of 1/8/2020 from the planning board, I just counted up. There's 10 residential and 39 commercial projects.
39.
So I apologize, it's not 40, it's actually 49 projects that are in front of the planning board right now. As of 1/8/2020.
All right, thank you guys. I just want to give my perspective. So, for me, public participation is always very important. I don't view myself as someone who got elected so I can do what Brian Marr wants to do. I truly view myself as someone who wants to represent the community, and I had this unique opportunity with this election just recently coming where, you know, it was close, it was tight, and we were able to knock on 3,500 doors. And I had conversations with hundreds, if not over 1,000 individuals, different families, got feedback, and an overwhelmingly large number of those individuals, and I know it's spread through all parties if you take into account the individuals Kristen's talked to, as we're from different parties, they were absolutely at a point where warehouses and distribution facilities over a certain square footage, these larger warehouses, were affecting their quality of life. It's a reality. It's not something that I think we can ignore or throw under the rug, and I agree we need to be careful, but also it's important to act quickly because we're announcing we're discussing this, right? So what's going to happen in the next couple weeks? There is something to consider there, and months. So I would absolutely be in favor of us allowing our attorney to at least start drafting a potential local law on a moratorium. And from what I'm hearing, we can start with, and we have to figure out exactly the right wording, Will, in terms of warehouses, distribution centers, because I think we might say something, but technically there might be some things we need to know on how that's defined and what that might also encompass, to Ron's point, to not affect too many businesses that we may not want to affect. So I would recommend allowing our attorney to give us something to look at as a next step in a draft law form. And also, while we do that, get feedback from the planning board who are on the front lines, get feedback from members of the community who are represented here but also are not represented here, and really do our due diligence, speak with the county planner right now to see what we might be able to do to offset whatever input they might have, get ahead of it. But more than anything, while we do this, it's our job as elected officials, and I'm going to take ownership over this very much, to educate our community on how we got here and moving forward what the impacts are going to be. And for me, that's going to start with talking about the incentives that we offer through the IDA and why they're there and the impact that they potentially could have. And if we change them, how would we change them? I think all of these things have to wrap together, and communication is going to be 100% key. So that is my recommendation, but my attorney is trying to say something, so I'll let you go.
Well, I'm the board's attorney too. So what I want to stress here is what else has to go hand in hand with the potential enactment of a moratorium is proceeding swiftly on putting together a review team for the comprehensive plan, because the idea, the ultimate goal is to have something done and end the moratorium quickly. So we have every right, as a board, you have every right, if the work is done, let's say there's a moratorium, and let's say in all, best of all worlds, it doesn't have to be extended because it's not uncommon for, as you see from the examples that we gave you, it's not uncommon for a moratorium to be extended for a few more months if work is proceeding, but it's not quite done yet and the new laws aren't, the plan's not updated and new zoning laws or any other laws are put into place. One of the things that's critically important is it's a companion process. You have a moratorium, you're gearing up to enact such a moratorium. At the same time, the committee that was talked about at the prior reorg meeting and so on is going to have to be seated, and their work is going to have to be done. Commenced. Okay, meaningfully, not just we should do this. It's like the work has to start because that's how you support. If the board decides to go forward with some form of moratorium, it has to be supported by companion work. Otherwise, you're just wasting time.
So next Thursday, we have 2 firms that are going to be interviewing for services for the comprehensive plan. Our emails and individuals who are interested in serving on the comp plan committee are due by this Friday. So by next Thursday's meeting, this board is going to have a selection of potential candidates for the comprehensive plan committee by the January 23rd meeting, and we're going to interview firms to do that work. So we are doing this hand in hand. We are going to make sure to justify the moratorium law that there is a comp plan committee in process put in place, and I think we ought to and we can discuss and potentially act on both by next Thursday in terms of just seeing something in front of us. It might take us another meeting to work through that and to set a public hearing, obviously, but I don't think it would be hasty of us to have our attorney draft us something if we are also next Thursday going to be looking at our comp plan process as well.
So I again did a fair amount of research. I guess it's one thing to say, well, draft a law. Will, what are you drafting? I mean, so I think we need to give Will a little bit more guidance. And I have 4 key areas that I'd like to bring up.
Sure.
What is our plan? What is our anticipated timeline? Like Will said, I mean, minimum of 6 months, but no longer than a year to be drafted in the law. I think I'm just nervous. I've never done a comp plan. I don't know if you guys have.
Yeah.
But I don't want to do a year, and our committee's done in 8 months, right? Because it's like crap. Now there's 4 months of potential development that people can get on the ground and moving, according to our plan. So starting out with a time frame, how long is our moratorium for?
So I would suggest 6 months. You can always reevaluate and extend if you need to, but it gives you some flexibility. I don't know what the rest of the board thinks.
Reading the proposals from the consultants, they said it would be a 12-month minimum. And reading what they were presenting to us, I can't see it being less than 12 months. But I also have another question. Are the villages going to be part of our law?
The comp plan has its the moratorium? No, it wouldn't be village lines, right?
Those are for applications that appear before the town.
Correct.
The village can do what the villages can do.
All the 3 villages.
We don't have jurisdiction to compel the villages to follow the town's law.
They have their own boards, yeah. Good question.
So the next 2 things kind of go hand in hand. What's exempt? Stage of project, things being applied for, things being approved, shovel in the ground, and the scope. Are we talking about commercial only, commercial and residential? Where are we drawing the line? And the last one is the waiver process, zoning board or town board, like Will said. In our solar law, and I can go through all my notes, but I don't want to monopolize the meeting. Our solar law actually was the town board that received those. So I would recommend that it's the town board, and pretty sure in most of the examples I got sent, it is the town board. I would be hesitant to put that on our zoning board. I think that's our responsibility, but I did go through the 2012 moratorium, which I believe is the last one that the town had, and made a summary of it for all the board members. So those are just, my thoughts on that. But moving forward, what's exempt and what's a scope are the 2 next things I think we need to give Will a direction on.
I would say commercial, right? Does anyone have any thought on putting residential in this as well, if we're doing a square footage issue?
All commercial.
Yes, not all, yes. Oh, but it's not all commercial in the moratorium. It would be, from what I hear, this board would be comfortable doing something specifically for warehouses and distribution facilities that are over 100,000 square feet. Correct me if I'm wrong, but that's what I heard.
I would say all commercial, and actually talking to Fred Reichel, the chair of the planning board, he recommended all commercial.
I mean, it's up to us, so.
So you couldn't build a medical complex similar to Crystal Run if we had land available that fell into, you couldn't build?
In a year, that way we determine which direction the town's going in from the comp plan?
The thing is, if they're available in a year, I mean, that's the thing, it's not just about our timeline, it's about prospective developers' timeline as well.
I mean, you're saying 6 months, I don't think 6 months is enough.
No, but you can always reevaluate it, right? If we see some negative impacts, you want to give yourself an out, you know, and you can always re-up it. Hold on a second, guys.
The solar law was for 6 months.
Right.
Local law number 2 was for 6 months. Local law number 5 was 3 months, and then it was enacted.
Right. So you have it gives yourselves flexibility. I wouldn't want to do a year and us have some issues and not be able to justify getting out of it, right? So I would suggest start with 6 months. I think that's carefully and thoughtfully as opposed to a year, and you can always extend it if you need to.
As long as the comp plan's done, I'm cool with the moratorium being done, because then we have a direction of which way we're going.
Yeah, I think we all will be on the same page there.
I think the comp plan and the moratorium should have the same timeline, because if you're doing a comp plan and you base it on, you have some facts about a moratorium, and then 6 months later, the moratorium is lifted, and it might affect the way you're gonna do your comp plan. So I would.
And they did say 12 to 18 months
12
on
to
that
18
comp
months, I
plan.
would.
But it's no difference between re-upping a 6-month moratorium or replacing one in a year, aside from giving us more flexibility and potential outs for things we can't anticipate. We can't anticipate everything that's gonna happen when we pass this, so we need to have some thought about that. So just giving us some more options, I think, is what the 6 month would do, as opposed to enacting one that's a year. That's just my opinion.
Any downside to that, Will? So in this,
If you do 6 months, you just have to make sure the process for extending it is gonna start really 4 months in.
Correct.
Because you're gonna have to go back to the county for a referral and have another public hearing. It's basically, to extend the moratorium, you have to pass another local law.
But I think we should give ourselves the flexibility to evaluate those first 4 months to see if this is something that, and again, it probably won't, right? It might not, but just in case, we can't anticipate everything. It gives us a little more flexibility, and it doesn't hurt us because we can just re it up. It's not gonna be the same case as was with the solar law. I personally will not let that happen, where it wasn't re-upped in time and you guys had to pass a law that you didn't wanna pass. That won't happen here. You know, we're not gonna let that happen.
Right, just have to be very mindful of when it's time
We
to
have to have a
start.
calendar on our, yeah.
Well, it's time to, when it's time to start getting ready for an extension, because realistically, getting a comp plan done in 4 months is what you're talking about, because you know.
No,
you're gonna
what I'm
have to
talking about
extend.
is not that. What I'm talking about is giving us flexibility and extra opportunity in case there's something we see that we can't anticipate. That's all I'm talking about. I don't think, and I don't
No, I
envision
got you.
getting a comp plan done in 4 months.
Yeah, because you'll have to assume that you're gonna need to do an extension.
Right. Yes, correct.
That's all.
Okay.
Can be done.
To Councilwoman Brown's point, it looks like the majority of the board is more in favor of a potential moratorium on just warehouses and distribution facilities over 100,000 square feet and not on all development. Is that what I'm hearing?
For my aspect, yes.
Councilwoman Voss? Deputy Supervisor?
Yes.
Okay, I agree with that.
totally got skipped.
I'm sorry.
You like went right over me. Is this like?
I was going by
something
what
to
you
get this?
said. I was going by what you said, so I figured you had already spoken through it. How do you feel about that?
I would follow the planning board chair's statement to me and all commercial, because now you're not specifically stating this 100,000 square foot and putting that on. I mean, to me, that's singling out individual projects.
We have more than just one in the queue, so to me, it's not singling out one.
It's not, well?
We'll talk about that, but we'll talk about that in a different time.
Okay.
Once we start drafting language.
I think at the end of the day, a majority of the board, from what I'm hearing, is more comfortable with drafting a law that's specific to that. Now, you had a couple other questions aside from the time frame and that, or were those the main pieces? Any
the other
outs,
one is,
right?
We talked about scope, the timing, and the variance issue. Those were the things I have notes that you raised.
Yep,
Was there
exactly.
anything else?
Well, did we go over, like, when the projects would be halted?
Honestly, what I would do, and by asking Will's gonna look at some other laws, maybe do a little research into potential lawsuits that came up because it was too closer to the process.
Yeah, I mean, it's not necessarily other lawsuits, it's just, there are different ways to do it.
Right.
Can you send us that information, then we can have another conversation at the next board meeting?
Of course.
Yeah.
We'll put this as an agenda topic for that one.
Okay, so instead of him putting something together.
No, him putting something together.
By the next meeting, yes, for us to look at as a discussion.
Yep.
But totally, that's exactly what I'd like to see happen, yes. So you have some feedback, some of it.
I have enough to get started.
You good? Okay, that was my question.
I have enough to get started.
Great. We have 4 minutes to spare. Is there any other comments from the board?
They don't start until 5:30.
I wanted to get some setup time and for people to congregate. Okay.
Covered the issue that we need to get started with.
All right, thank you all for coming. I'll be available for anyone to talk to individually for quite a while. And would anyone like to make a motion to adjourn?
I'll make second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstaining? Motion carried. Thank you, everybody.